Welcome to r/MaliciousCompliance, where we share stories of people conforming to the letter but not the spirit of a request. Thank you, friends, for subscribing to the channel and for so many likes. The first story: my father's manager says he can't have a rental car and limits the number of cab trips he can take. The second story: client demanded to wrap his sandwich, and I did it by wrapping each individual section. The third story: guy wanted $45, but after my complaint, he will have to pay more. The first story is special delivery. I only vaguely remember these events, as I was 7 at the time. The rest of the details were filled in by my father. It was the mid-90s. My father was a highly paid business consultant. The company he worked for would hire him out to businesses who were trying to get off the ground. He would fly out, spend a few weeks with them, and train their management on the finer points of business ownership. He also handled large projects such as the planning, building, staffing, and organization of new offices and other such. For this, his company would charge anywhere from $300 to $400 an hour for his time, billed by the week at a minimum of 40 hours a week, or more if there was overtime. In exchange for this less than modest sum, the company took care of all my father's expenses, rather than push them off on the client. This went on for years. My mom quit her job to stay at home with me, and my dad held down the finances of the household himself. But he was gone for 3 weeks at a time, and when he was here, he was at the office. I was lucky if I spent any real time with him more than 2 days a month. This also negatively affected my parents' marriage. Then for my 6th birthday, my dad got me a model plane and a membership card to the airline his company used. In truth, it was a copy of his card, but 6-year-old me thought it was the coolest thing ever. It had my dad's name on it, and the word Admiral. Bringing his concerns regarding his home life to his boss, my father had struck a deal. I would be flown out to him every third or so weekend. My father would pay the cost of the flights, but would use his company account, and thus have access to his frequent flyer discount, company discount, and would collect any loyalty points or what have you that I earned. I was flying for pennies on the dollar. I would spend the weekend with him in whatever hotel he was in, and we would go and do stuff in the city. He got to see me, I got to see both him and a new city, and my mom got to spend a weekend without me to decompress. Everyone loved the arrangement, myself especially. Fast forward a year, I've achieved Admiral status within the airline's loyalty program. Not a hard task, as my dad already had that status and I was using his account, but I felt accomplished nonetheless, and have been to all 48 continental states. This is when something happened. There was a change in the company. People moved around, people were hired, and people were fired. And when all the dust settled, my dad found himself one position higher and under new management. Dad's new manager had no issues with the father and son getaway perk my dad was liberally using. But to offset the extra cost, there would be a few changes to my dad's expense account. While food and entertainment were fully covered, as many of his meetings happened over lunch, the manager decided that rather than provide my father with a rental car, instead he would take local transport, via cabs or similar services, and would be given a limited number of trips he could take a day. Surely he only needed to travel twice a day, to and from the site, so he was allotted 2 cab rides per day. He was out of state, including weekends since the manager wanted to be generous. Any additional travel my father wanted to take would be on his own dime. My dad brought up that the company was not spending any resources on my trips, aside from the 30 minutes of time it took the travel agent to book my flights. But this new manager insisted that this was a much better use of company time and resources. All other expenses, including the hotel, dry cleaning, and any mail that had to be sent, would be covered as usual. Now, normally my visiting weekends would be jam-packed with whatever local museum or attraction the city had, followed by a nice dinner at a cool or fancy restaurant. One does not achieve this with 2 cab rides a day. My dad blows all his cab rides on my next visit. We go and see everything: a museum, a movie, a fair of some sort. Every trip was by cab. This is the part I remember, because my dad had me keep count with him. An entire amazing day is spent, and in total 11 cab rides were had. Now for the malicious compliance. Without any more allotted cab rides, after I was sent home, my dad was still scheduled for a week of work. He contacted the local post office and explained his situation. After some evil laughter from both him and the postman, a truck shows up at his hotel. He mails himself to work, and then back again for the rest of the week. He went to the post office and paid them the cost to mail a package with his dimensions and weight. Then they let him ride in one of their trucks to his destination. He pays for first-class delivery by the pound. This becomes exorbitantly expensive. At the end of the trip, my dad sent in an expense report that had a few $1,000s extra on it for shipping costs. The fallout. Some stuff happened. There was a change in the company. Some people were moved, some people were hired, and some people were fired. My father found himself under a new manager. The company decided that it was improper to have different rules for expenses for different employees based on their status or tenure. A fixed policy was enacted company-wide. My dad's new manager had no issues with sending me out once a month on my father's business account, as long as my father paid for the cost of the flights. The second story is, you want your club sandwich to stay together? You got it. This happened about 4 years or so ago. I used to work as a cook at a dine-in restaurant of a truck stop. The lack of leadership by the restaurant management bred an atmosphere of being able to get away with just about anything among the employees, including how we interacted with the customers. My coworkers quickly learned I preferred to work than gossip, and they even more quickly regretted the rare time or two they would try to get me involved in some drama. As most of them didn't like my sarcastic wit, they would let me be. I pretty much was back in the kitchen most of the time, and didn't have to usually deal with our guests, but would be out front from time to time, usually on my way to or from the restroom, and did get to know many of our regulars. There were all kinds of truck drivers, the ones who were cool and fun to talk with, the flirts, the politically opinionated, every once in a while an occasional creep who had to be dealt with. All walks of life of drivers graced our establishment, and for the most part, no problems. Then there would be the drivers who, no matter what you did, were just outright jerks. Rude to the staff, complaining about everything, and I mean everything. The weather, the repair shop, the music playing on the intercom, the showers, the price of diesel, the cost of items in the store, which was a separate department from the restaurant, the truck parking, all things that we had absolutely no control over. And hey guys, we're just here to serve you food, okay? Yeah, it would get a little tedious listening to the whiners, so whenever I happened to spot the few habitual verbal offenders sitting out front, I would take the back way around to the ladies' room. Like I said, I don't care for gossip or drama. So I'm working the grill line. It's a somewhat slow afternoon, being the middle of the week. The front counter is about half full with drivers sitting around chatting and eating, when one of our regular jerks comes in. Now, this particular regular jerk was a special breed, the kind I refer to as not happy unless they're watching the world burn. This guy took being a jerk to the next level, never wanted to socialize with the other drivers, never tipped the servers, always got his food to go. Yes, he would every single time open the container to inspect his order, grumble, and make a snide comment. Would get the same thing every time, a club sandwich with fries. And for whatever reason, he would stick his head around the corner of the server line to see who was cooking before ordering, even though he would get the same thing every single time. Out of the corner of my eye, I see this driver peeking at me for a moment before he disappears from sight. Knowing what's coming, I go ahead and start the order. Now, the club sandwich we made was of the triple-decker variety. 3 slices of bread, ham, turkey, bacon, mayo, lettuce, tomato, and cheese, which upon assembly was held together with frill picks, very long toothpicks with colored plastic frills on one end, and cut into quarters. Sure enough, the ticket pops up on my printer a couple of minutes later. As I'd gotten a head start, the sandwich is already laid out on my cutting board, and I'm waiting on the bacon and fries to finish cooking. I set up the to-go box and reach for the pan with the frill picks, only to discover that there are none. No surprise, honestly. The other cooks aren't exactly known for keeping up with the line stocking, so I go over to the storage room to get some. We are out. Completely. There isn't one single frill pick in the place. OSH goes through my mind. Walking back to the line, I quickly brainstorm what to do. Realize that if I'm careful, I can cut the assembled sandwich and lay it in the box with the fries in such a way that it will not fall apart. Pleased with myself and my idea, I finish putting the order together and place the closed container in the pass-through window for the server to bag up. As I have no other orders at the moment, I decide to text my general manager, who's scheduled in later in the day, about the frill pick situation, and to ask if he can stop and pick some up on his way in. Before I can hit send, I hear a bellow from down the server line. What the heck is this? Immediately on alert, I step around to the server line to see Mr. World-Class Jerk glaring at me. He repeats his question, so I ask, what's the problem? Why are there no frill picks in my sandwich? He demands to know. My reply is matter of fact, because we're currently out. Why not? Can't you effing order right? Why can't you do your D job? Crossing my arms, I quirk an eyebrow and flatly reply that it's my general manager who does our ordering, not me. That I wasn't even aware we were out of frill picks until just now. The server's standing nervously off to the side. She's waiting to see what goes down. Mr. World-Class Jerk inhales, sputters a little, then spits out, well, I can't eat this like it is without the frill picks to hold it together. Not while I'm driving. He thrusts the box into the server's hands. I want each sandwich section wrapped so it doesn't fall apart. Then muttering under his breath, He steps back out front as the server scurries towards me. She hands me the box. I turn, walk past the grill line into the back kitchen and to the prep table. Setting the box down next to the dispenser, open the lid. You want your sandwich wrapped? You got it. Each individual section, carefully, lovingly wrapped, in a 4-foot-long sheet of 18-inch wide food service grade saran wrap. Placing the sandwich back into its box, I walk back up to the server line and handed it off to my coworker. She takes it out front. I see her hand it to this jerk, who proceeds to open the lid. He must have been satisfied because he closed the container and exited the restaurant. Walking back onto the grill line, I finish sending my text to my boss and wonder how long it will be before the fallout from my malicious compliance hits. We never saw that driver come into the restaurant ever again. And the last story is, don't become irate over $45. I was renting a condo from a guy who at first didn't seem to be too bad. I'm in the military and he was flexible on when I could move in and hours he would show me the place. I was there for about a year and had to break the contract early due to new orders in the military sending me out of the city I was in, which in the US is mandatory for all landlords and rental agencies. I moved out of the place over a month ago now, and as we agreed upon, he would deduct a cleaning service in the last month's electric bill, so I get about $135 less for my security deposit. No problem, end of story. But this morning I get a text message from him saying I need $45 more for last month's bills. I'm at work, so I see and quickly respond that we agreed to the $135, and I'm not just going to give him more. I'm busy at work, mind you, and he gets back to me with screenshots of the invoice for the bills and requests the money on Venmo. About 10 minutes of me not responding because I'm busy, he proceeds to send several text messages saying, fine, be that way, and I should have kept the security deposit, you GI blah blah blah. The one text that actually got under my skin was, I can't wait until companies look up your rental history. I'm going to strike you for non-payment of last month's rent. That's going on your credit report. All these texts came in under an hour after my first response. Well, once I finally checked my phone, I surprised and quickly upset. I'm not a liar and have always paid my debts. So I take my lunch break to send screenshots to the condominium board and property agency to report him for harassment. And the woman who is working is amazing. She was disgusted with his attitude, and we talk about my stay at the residence. I mentioned the floors were warped, and in the kitchen was pretty bad in particular. So this is her idea really, but she then emails me the city laws on landlord-tenant relations and building code. So far I've filed 2 different complaints with the city. One on him as a landlord and human being, and being I'm already out of the area, don't know if it'll go anywhere. That second report is now going to a city inspector to survey the condo on keeping up proper flooring, which to be honest I should have reported to someone while I was there, but I'm a busy and easygoing guy who didn't want to take the time to start a formal inquiry and have to possibly move out for repairs. He in all likelihood will have to replace a good amount of floor space and spend way more money. If someone owes you $45, at least give them a little while to get you the money. It may save you more than just what's owed. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe if you want more stories like this.